Right, want to start off by giving our praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bashim Yahushua, Bashim Kakwadash. I want to give double honor to the apostles of GMS that rule well. And a peace, blessing, salutation to the hopefully elect, that consists of you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Hispanics, Native Americans. This is Shaquaka Ra from GMS Virginia, coming back at you again. Those will be edified. And just another dark tale of Esau. A lot of things are coming out. This new generation, they don't really know too much about times prior. They don't know about, the hostility that was going on with our people from, 1960s, 70s prior. They don't know about, Jim Crow, the redlining. Jake just really truly believed they just woke up and we just fell and we just some dumb niggas. And we're just some niggas that just, we hate each other, we disdain each other, we envy each other, and we just some gangbangers, we're just some drug users, drug dealers, and pimps, pushers, and whores. Jake really don't understand this system. We're going into Revelation 17, Revelation 12, with Daniel 2, Daniel 7, and these prophecies, in this system. And they don't understand about Yahweh Yahushua, and they don't understand the names of our power. They don't understand reasoning. They don't understand why we're going through these things. What is it? Baruch 4, Baruch 3 or 2. And it's another one. Damn. It slipped my mind. Damn. But nonetheless, Jake don't understand the meaning behind all of this in this system. This system was set up to, our enemy, the so-called white man, Job 9:24, Romans, the 9th chapter, Esau being known as the modern day Pharaoh, Egyptian, with his Revelation 11:8, if I'm not mistaken, that dead body shall lie in a great city, which is spiritually called Sodom in Egypt. Now, I'm going to show a video, and I'm going to bring up the ChatGPT because, I was like, yo, fuck out of it. I don't know. I'm going to look it up. But, yeah, this is true. And this is what really happened. Now, it's very ironic. They try to say, so-called black men, Latino, Hispanic men are womanizers. They're narcissists. They're everything underneath the heaven but the sons of God. But here it is. The so-called white man has the most brutal history. And it's hard. I know it's hard. I know, it's far-fetched. It's crazy because you looked at the so-called white man as your buddy, as a friend. You're not outright seeing this anymore. You're seeing the TV shows, the TV, Esau's, that fake smile and laughter, the fake smirk, the fake hi, good morning, certain handouts he's giving you. But, it's very ironic. A lot of Jakes I just run across, they're seeing that, this world is racist, and they're coming to that acknowledgement that, this world is racist. This world is put against us. But a lot of our people don't know the true dark and how much hatred and how much this world is against you. I'm gonna play this lesson, and Lord's will be edified.
Did you know America publicly tortured and murdered a pregnant black woman for speaking up, and nobody was ever punished? In 1918, in Lowndes County, Georgia, Mary Turner spoke out after her husband was lynched by a white mob. She said she would seek justice. That was all it took. A mob captured Mary Turner while she was 8 months pregnant. They tied her ankles together. They hung her upside down from a tree in broad daylight with people watching. This was not hidden. This was not secret. This was a message. They cut open her body, took out her unborn child, and killed the baby in front of the crowd. Then they shot Mary Turner until she died. No arrests, no trials, no consequences. The killers were known. Local officials protected them. Newspapers wrote about it casually, like it was routine. Because it was routine. This wasn't mob rage. This was racial terrorism, designed to teach black people, especially black women, what happens when we Turner wasn't murdered for breaking the law. She was murdered for demanding the law to protect her. And remember this wasn't the 1700s. This was 1918. America didn't just kill Mary Turner, it erased her, so you wouldn't see what this country was built to allow.
So, there you have it, you know. Some of the brutal, dark history of America, which they don't want people to know and really grasp onto, especially our people. Now, again, you know, people always claim, oh, that was so long ago. That was so long ago. Here it is right here in ChatGPT. So this is Mary Turner, Georgia, 1918. Mary Turner was a young black woman who was brutally lynched in Lowndes County, Georgia, in May 1918. She was about 19 years old and 8 months pregnant at the time of her murder. So this is a murder. Now here it is. The same system we've been crying, pleading, trimming our ways for, you know, begging the so-called white man to love, accept us, and, you know, we're all, you know, that Christianity bullshit, that, you know, going back into the psychological destruction and how you call it, the psychological overtake of our mind, so-called Black, Latino, Hispanic, Native Americans' minds. You know, they try to pretty much wipe and pretty much put the Stockholm Syndrome mindset in our people. So here it is, all the outright murder. And it's crazy because they always try to demonize the so-called black man as the most worst thing. You know, the fugitive Esau is, you know, they try to demonize our people, black men, starting with the so-called black man. And they're always putting out there that he beats up our women. He's a pimp. He beats up women. He cheats. He's everything but the Son of God. You know. But here it is. When you go into the history of what the so-called white man have done to our women, then one thing for certain, him and his woman tricked our woman to be that Jezebel, that promiscuous, that evil, sadistic black bitch that you see today. The so-called white man created that, you know, and now he has unleashed that pit bull amongst the so-called black man. So when the so-called black man goes to, now here it is, you see the so-called black woman wanted justice for her husband, and what did the so-called white man do? He didn't put up with that. He said, oh hell no, bitch, you black banshee bitch, we're getting rid of you, and we're going to destroy your offspring of that man. So, and here it is, he done turned the so-called black woman against us, and if the so-called black man does something, we're the worst thing ever. But see, I say all that to say this, that's that hypocrisy that a Babylon the Great has, and that's that bullshit the so-called white man be on, you know. Here it is, he didn't put up, the so-called white man doesn't put up with the so-called black woman. You know, officer or the justice system, the fake ass justice system, if the so-called black woman does certain things in the society, or they put her black ass in jail, and they'll shoot, just like you had Sandra Bland, the other so-called black woman that said that in the name of Jesus, and then the so-called white cop blew her away. It's a lot of things that, you know, this devil has done, and nobody has had to pay for it. And here it is, you know, the so-called black man is everything underneath the sun but the Son of God. So it says what happened. So it said her husband, Hayes Turner, had been falsely accused of killing a white plantation owner. So there you go, falsely accused, right? He didn't have a chance. He didn't have a trial. He wasn't even heard. They just got rid of him. And now, in the fact that the so-called black woman came to his aid, because, you know, all jokes aside, at one point, so-called black women was behind the so-called black man at one point. But see, that was systematically done so the so-called black woman can be the enemy of the so-called black man. And this is why you see the things that you see here in America. with going on between the so-called black man and black woman. So it said after Hayes was lynched, Mary publicly protested his murder and threatened to have those responsible arrested. In retaliation, a white mob, an Edomite mob, captured her on May 19, 1918 near the Little River in Georgia. She was tied upside down, burnt, mutilated, and killed in one of the most horrific acts of racial violence in U.S. history. See that? Where, so tell me this. Now, out of all, I get it. This is one of the most violent acts that the so-called white man has done. But then now you're telling me the so-called black man is even worse? Now see, they'll throw Diddy on the bus. And that nigga need to get dealt with. And he's going to. Psalms 5. He's going to. These niggas not going to be acquitted for their wickedness. R. Kelly was thrown underneath the bus. Diddy was thrown underneath the bus. Jay-Z's about to get thrown underneath the bus. Snoop Dogg is ready to get thrown underneath the bus. Suge Knight and all these so-called black actors you see on TV, they're being thrown underneath the bus. But the so-called white man has been able to just get abroad and go along scot-free. But remember, and it's not a coincidence, Isaiah 47, Obadiah, the first chapter, I believe the first verse or second verse, all, the wickedness of the so-called white man is being exposed. What is Ezekiel 35 and 5, if I'm not mistaken? So, her unborn baby was also killed, murdered. Mary Turner's murder was part of a wave of racial terror lynching in South Georgia in 1918. No one was ever convicted for the crime. Her killing became one of the most documented and shocking lynchings of the Jim Crow era. So let's see what it said. Today, his filmmaker, Marco and Valdosa, commented Mary and the victim. But yeah, whatever. NAACP, that was all bullshit. Was a so-called black organization, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, for the Boule. It was a so-called black group that was created to make it seem like they were doing something for the backs of the so-called black people. But all in all, that shit was back. So-called white man had his hands in it, because here it is. You always had the black Boule. You had those Jake that basically were sellouts, man. That would try to make it seem like they cared for the people, but inwardly they were wolves. They came off as they were for the people, but they were compromised. But that's pretty much it. That's something short and sweet, and something just to let our people know. This system is not for us. This is 1918. It's not far. What is that? 98 years ago. You actually got Jake. That's what living. No. How many years? What is that? And that might be. Like I said, I'm not gonna use my brain right now, but yeah. Anyways, yeah, Jake. It's not too far long ago. It wasn't that far. How Esau wants you to believe that these things were thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. No, it wasn't too far fetched, because honestly, and I always say this, I saw my great grandparents. And, now I had a grandmother that was born in the 1940s. So here it is. My great grandparents, they were born in what? Prior to that, So it's all lies. The so-called white man was able to play a good fugitive, but the jig is up. The Lord is exposing this man. You're starting to realize he's not a hero. He's a zero. He's a fucking dork. He's a loser. Anybody that's striving to be on this man's side, you're gonna go down with him. You're on the losing team. But with that, those reaps edified. With that, I'm say shalom.